these 6 cards. There was a woman who lived in a forest. She was a very kind woman. She was in touch with all the flowers and all the wildlife. She was in touch with her heart, and she was in touch with the world around her. She felt peace, and she felt a sense of giving. She felt a sense of purpose. She allowed people to be who they were and didn't judge them for who they are. And she lived that way for a long time until a great storm came. The storm shook her, and it shook her environment. The storm was really bad. The clouds closed in, gray and dark. The trees and the plants were blown to the full extent of their strength. Trees bent, the leaves blew off, the flowers were blown away. The animals had to hide, and the beautiful, abundant world began to disappear, began to fade. And in charge of that storm, that cloud, was a woman with a sword. She wasn't evil. She was just doing what she did. What she did was create an incredible disturbance in that peaceful environment. You could almost say the serpent blew through the Garden of Eden and left nothing in its wake. The woman with the sword was doing what she did. She had no animosity. She had no ill will. That was just how she was, and that was just who she was. And she created this world where it was emptiness. There was emptiness and there was need. And there was a lack of direction. There was a lack of purpose. The friendships were gone. The harmony was gone. The world was gone. The emotions were gone. And we were left with a woman sitting in the clouds, lording over it. And the woman knew that this wasn't how she wanted to be. But she came to think that this was all that she could be, because this world that she had known had been torn away from her. And so she prayed and she asked, and she said to Spirit, "What can I do? I don't understand. Why has this world been taken from me and left with this void? What can I do to reclaim what it was that made me whole? What can I do to reclaim what it was that made me me and gave me that connection with all the good things and all the bad things and all the things, just things, all the stuff?" She asked Spirit what she could do to get back to that place. Is there a place that I can get back to? Am I stuck here forever? Am I stuck here forever in this wasteland where all the stuff I loved is gone? And Spirit answered. And Spirit said, yes, you can reclaim that place, but you have some work to do in order to do that. Nothing comes for free, and nothing is given. You have to give, and you have to understand where you are. And your asking for my help tells me that you do understand where you are. You are in a place where you are uncomfortable, and you are in a place that is not where you ought to be. You know the place you want to be, but you've lost it. You've almost lost a feeling for what it is. That feeling of this place that I want to be, that she wants to be, is a hazy memory. And she's trying to find what that place is. What is that place that used to make me happy? And what is that place where I used to feel free? And so this is the work you have to do. You have to integrate the forces that are causing you calamity and work together with them and your vision of what you want to be and where you want to be and what that world is that caused you such joy and freedom and connection. Because that world is still there. It's in you, but you've separated yourself from it. And so your job is to find that world. That world is not something that's going to be given to you through a television program, and that world is not something that's going to be found under a rock. The world is inside of you, and you have, in a way, covered it with what the woman with the sword brought. The woman with the sword brought this, but she didn't mean to. She didn't mean to hurt anybody. She didn't mean to destroy the world, but she did. And so that's what you were left with. And so now there's this huge confusion and this longing. The confusion is, where am I? Why am I here? What am I doing? Why do I feel so much pain? And the longing is for that space that was your space. This woman just wanted to be back in that place where she was free and connected and alive and joyful. So Spirit said, yes, here's where you are. And this is what has been created for you. Now, the secret is that you created it. The secret is that you are the woman with the sword. You could say that woman with the sword is your mother. You could say that woman with the sword is the devil. You could say that woman with the sword is reason. But the woman with the sword is you. At one point, you decided unconsciously to destroy what you had, to destroy that beauty. And so you can blame your parents, but really, what is that going to get you? How is that going to cause you to become reconnected with what it is that you lost? So here's your task. Your task is to find the positive and the negative, the good and the bad, and bring them together. So imagine that you're in the place that you were in, and imagine that you're in the place that you are in now, and understand that these were both created by you. And the woman looked at Spirit and said, I understand what you're saying, but it's hard for me to understand why I would have done that to myself, to create that emptiness and that void. And Spirit laughed and said, do you really need to know that? Do you really need to understand that? Can you just take me at my word that this is the situation as it is now, and this is the situation as it has been created? Do you want to know how you can restore the garden? And the woman said, yes, I want to know how to restore the garden. Tell me. And Spirit said, first you need to understand where you are. You need to understand where you are and not run away from it. You need to understand that you are in a place that you created, and you need to understand that this place is here for your growth and your understanding. The fact that you are in pain about every aspect of this world that you've created is a place where you need to put your understanding. This place of pain that you have created for yourself is a place where you need to understand. This is what integrating is all about. You have two different persons, and you have one spirit bringing them together. You're not going to merge these people together, but you're going to integrate them. You're going to work together with them. So let's see how we can do that. Well, when was the last time you truly celebrated something? The woman said, I don't know. I have been in so much pain for so long, I have forgotten how to celebrate. And Spirit said, yes, you have. You have definitely forgotten how to celebrate. Celebration is from the heart. It's not from the mind. You think you know how to celebrate. You think you know how to do things that you enjoy, but you really don't. You're not coming from a place of joy. You're coming from a place of work. You're coming from a place of an attempt. Your spirit is trying to explain this to the woman. And he says very simply, you have created an idea about how to solve this issue, to get yourself out of this pain. But you are wrong. This is not the way to do it. You think that if you were to do a certain task well, that this is going to integrate you. And what you are not taking into account is remembering where you came from, which is a place of joy, which is a place of peace and flowers and animals, warmth and comfort. That's in you, and that's your joy. That's your heart. That's not your mind. If you try to use your mind to deal with your pain and integrate yourself, you're going to fail. That sounds very scary, said the woman, for I have nothing but my mind. My heart has abandoned me. My feelings have abandoned me. I feel cold and I feel alone. I feel like I love no one and I feel like no one loves me. And Spirit said, yes, that's a good place to start. That's a good place to start. Because when you're in this place, it's about realizing you don't need to move a mountain. You don't need to write a novel. You don't need to paint the Sistine Chapel. You need to realize what it is you've lost, what it is you've created, and where your pain is. Understand that what you've lost and where your pain is you. There's no bad guys and there's no good guys. It's you. The fact that you want to find this place again is a good thing. It shows that you're looking into yourself and you are asking questions. There's a lot of issues that you need to work through, he said to the lady. But there's nothing that can't be done. Because through me, all things are done. And the woman said, I trust you. I trust you to help me. And the Spirit said, okay, that's a good place to start. I trust you as well. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to forget everything that you think is a thing in your life. All these different aspects that cause you pain. Everything in your life that causes you pain, which is everything in your life that causes you pain. In some way, you must forget all of that because you're chasing something that you will not find through your mind. You're chasing a vague goal. Now, you might be thinking, I'm telling you that you have to throw everything out the window, sell all your possessions, and move into a monastery. That is not what I am telling you, Spirit said. What I am telling you, Spirit said, is that the act of chasing a solution to these issues is killing you. You can see it in your body. You can see it in your mind. You can see it in your atmosphere, and you can see it in your environment. You can see it in all the things that you have drawn to yourself. The woman said, yes, you are right. I can see that. I can see that I have been chasing something, and I know that it is not working. I know that what I am chasing will never be found. And he said, yes, that is true. What you are chasing will never be found. However, do not give up hope, because forgetting all is remembering all. Nothing controls you. Nothing controls you. The woman said, yes, everything controls me. And Spirit said, nothing controls you. Spirit says, imagine that you're sitting on a horse in the middle of a field. You're covered in armor. You're protected. You're safe. Imagine that you have your image on the world. Imagine that you're in a place of rest, of peace, of calm, and of solitude. Now think of all the things that the woman with the sword caused. Think of all the things that the woman with the sword caused and the outcome of that. Now imagine all of that pain and all of that suffering and all of those things that just continue to pile up, that continue to hound you. Yes, the woman said, the pain is so great, I don't know how much longer I can bear it. And Spirit said, no, you can bear it. You are very strong. And I know that you can go through this. We can go through this. You and I, Spirit said. Do you trust me? Spirit said. Yes, the woman said, I trust you. And Spirit said, then let me remind you of something. Nothing controls you. You choose to be controlled. The woman said, that's a lot to take in. And Spirit said, yes, it is. It's a lot to take in. You choose to be controlled. Our life is filled with choices. The woman said, yes, this sounds like truth. And the Spirit said, yes, it is truth. It's very simple. You complicate it so much. The woman said, yes, I do complicate it. And the Spirit said, but that's okay. That's who you are. That's how you operate. There's nothing wrong with who you are or how you operate. However, the pain you're feeling doesn't need to be there. It doesn't need to be there. It can be a lot less intense. The woman says, but everyone suffers. And Spirit said, yes, everyone suffers. That's true, but they suffer to their own degree. They suffer to the degree that they choose to suffer. How do you choose to suffer? And the woman said, I don't choose to suffer. I suffer. And Spirit said, you choose to suffer. And the woman said, I don't understand. And Spirit said, you will in time. You choose to suffer. So now, let's choose to not suffer. And the woman said, but how do I do that? And Spirit said, I'll give you a couple of small pieces of advice that you might want to take in. The first piece of advice is that you can make this a celebration. You can make this joy. You can make this an adventure. You can make this a challenge. You can make this an adventure race where you're testing yourself to the utmost degree for the whole time and not be suffering. Do you see that? Do you perhaps see what would be like if 3 women were dancing together, holding up cups and celebrating life, celebrating the harvest, celebrating just like you remember you were back when you were in that garden, in that place of joy, in that place of contentment? Do you remember that? It's becoming clearer, the woman said. I was having a hard time remembering what that place looked like, but I'm beginning to have a memory of it. I'm beginning to have a feeling of it, of what that was like. And Spirit said, hold on to that, because that's going to be your guiding light. You remember those 3 women I told you about that were celebrating? How can you celebrate? What can you do to celebrate? And the woman said, I'm so overwrought with pain and suffering, I don't know how to celebrate. I don't remember. And Spirit said, there is your task. there is your task. You must find a way to celebrate your life, your loves, your struggles, your sorrows, your regrets, your joys, your wins and your losses. Celebrate them all as if they were one. You. And the woman said, so I need to learn how to celebrate. And Spirit said, yes, you are in pain and suffering all the time now, every second of the day, and you're killing yourself. You need to find a way to celebrate. And the woman said, can you just give me a clue, a hint? And Spirit said, you push yourself too hard. Not by what you do, but how you think about it, how you react to things. There's an aspect of your life where you need to find rest. You need to find quiet. You need to find solitude. You need to find peace. You need to find a place where you can be alone and understand that the armor you are wearing is for your benefit. It's not bad. We all need armor. We all need to survive this place. But you need to learn how to rest. You need to learn how to take the load off. And I also want to remind you that despite the fact that you often say to yourself that you feel that this art, that this creating is just grinding out, it's not. Truly, it's not. This part of the equation, if I were to give you 3 pieces of advice to learn how to integrate the garden with who you are now, those 3 pieces of advice would be to celebrate, to really celebrate, not fake celebrate, not sort of celebrate, but revel in the joy of the life you've built for yourself. Find a place of peace where you can be. Find a place of peace where you can connect with yourself. It doesn't have to look like it looks for anybody else, but find that place. The woman said, what else? And Spirit said, don't forget that you are a creative being, that you get power from creation. You don't need validation. You don't need somebody to say this is good. You need to do the work, because doing the work gives you what you need. And the woman said, can it possibly be that simple? And Spirit said, yes, it could be even simpler, but I want to give you something you can work with. And so, if I may remind you one more time, Spirit says, are you listening? The woman said, yes, I'm definitely listening. So Spirit said, remember the garden. Remember who you were in the garden. Remember how you were in the garden. Remember what the garden looked like, smelled like, tasted like, the beings in the garden that you interacted with, the friendships, how you were in the garden. And I want you to remember the lady with the sword. And I want you to remember how everything came crashing, how the storm came in and blew everything away, blew all the flowers away, blew all the trees down, blew away everything that you really thought you cared about and loved. And you were left with an empty place that was filled with pain. I want you to remember that the way that you can bring this back together is to find a way to integrate the garden with the world you have created now. I also want to remind you of 3 things you can do in order to make this happen. The first is to learn to celebrate, to revel in life and the joys of what you have created. The second is to find a place to truly rest. The second is to find a place to truly be yourself, alone. You don't need to work anything out. You don't need to solve any puzzles. You don't need to find any answers. You just need to be alone and quiet. And the third thing would be to not forget that you are a creative being and you need to work. You need to work at something. And you need to work at something that brings you some joy. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing. If it brings you joy, then embrace it. Don't treat it as something that needs to be avoided because of the way the world thinks about it. Can you remember those 6 lessons? And the woman said, yes, I can remember those 6 lessons. And Spirit said, how will you remember it? And the woman said, I have made a record of this story that you have told me, Spirit. And I have given myself the opportunity to remind me of this story whenever I want to. And Spirit said, good. I would advise that you do that. I would advise that you revisit this story regularly in order to remind yourself of where you are, of where you've been, and where you could be. The woman said, thank you, Spirit. And Spirit said, that's what I'm here for.